I think it was one of our smaller sessions that you've had. Even from the conversation, there was only, I think, 6 of us. It was really nice because it was a lot of people from different backgrounds, and we saw in person the conversations that we had around, especially the system thinking. I think in person, the system thinking was a very interesting experience to go through. In person, we got sidetracked quite often, though, because I think there was a lot of specific questions from the audience as well. I missed a bit of the coffee corner conversations. I missed that after the conversations that we have in the course, especially when we're going through more of a lecture period. When we step away for a coffee, you tend to have a conversation around those topics, but more on a practical level with the other attendees. And I think that inside of the online version, we didn't have these coffee corner moments. Online, only one person can speak at a time. So you reduce the amount of interruption, which increases everyone's actual listening to each other, active listening to each other. And I think it also allowed us to actually go through the activities much faster. So in a strange way, I think that we actually got through like the system thinking exercise faster. Perhaps we didn't get as far in our drawing, but we had more productive conversations where people actually listened instead of having 2 or 3 conversations happening at the same time. Online training, the fact that we did it in 4 days with a pause between the second day and the third day allowed a lot of discussion to already happen.
So
it allowed the coffee corner conversations to happen then. Sometimes it kind of blew up inside of our own area, so it was quite emotional. But I think it allowed those first concepts to really sink in before we actually went into day 3. Whereas I think that in the in-person, if we had it with the same group of individuals, day 4 is always day 4 of this training that we had online, but day 3 of the regular in-person training is extremely heavy and fast-paced. And I think that we wouldn't have been able to have as in-depth of conversations or in-depth of insights as individuals going to the training if we had not had that pause. So I would never have it 4 days in a row. I think that would have been exhausting. But I think the 2 days with a break and then a few more days within 2 weeks of each other, so it wasn't a lot of time in between. We kept it within a week. I think this allowed us to really take it a level deeper. If you don't have the gallery view available to you, which I did not have on day 4, is I couldn't read my colleagues' faces. And for me, this was something that was in person. I would have been able to really feel at moments of time where they were questioning things or they were feeling uncomfortable. And I think that even in person, we would have had some disattachment on some topics, but I wasn't able to have that feel as our colleague as well. Having it online allowed our team to really understand what would be the difficulties of actually doing this online collaboration. Because today, if we're looking at a LeSS implementation, it's no longer going to be everybody in one office. That's not going to be our future. Post-corona, this is not the future of IT, and I don't think it's the future of the majority of companies. So we need to be ready for the fact that we're going to be working remotely. So I think it allowed us to try out some of the tools and become more comfortable with it as well. I think that we took the time to really hear people's concerns or to hear their questions. And I think that as long as the people in the room feel that they can actually say something like, well, I know we have a 10-minute break, but can I use 5 minutes of that time to have a conversation on this topic? And I think that once you have that trust level in a team or with one of these trainings, it's possible. And I think it has to do with the passion around the topic. So I think if you have passionate people around the topic, this will happen. If people are disengaged and they just want to go get their certificate, that might not happen. I did miss having somebody who was the facilitator to come into some of the conversations as well, because when we would be pulled off topic, then it was up to me, who was actually there as a participant, to pull my colleagues back, or for somebody else to pull them back. So I did miss the facilitation and the side conversations, but I also think that not having someone present allowed them to really state what they wanted to state and try things out and make mistakes. So I would say it didn't feel that your energy was diminished. But I also think that if we had taken it only in 3 days, I think we could have felt that energy, because I think that you still had the passion, and we were able to do that, but in shorter spurts, perhaps. But I didn't feel that the story changed. So for me, the story didn't alter. I even could see, okay, I knew this example from before. So some things I could see again. But it never came across that your passion was pulled back. It's harder to step away from all of your responsibilities with an online. And it was really important that I had, all the way up to the executive team level, the agreement that these people would not be pulled away for any other meeting.
And do you think all of you were successful in keeping the distraction away, because you're sitting behind a computer, so you have your emails, you have other chats, you have many other things popping up, or at least the option to keep it popping up?
So I think what we said in the beginning was that if there was, because we had IT operations present, we said if there was an IT operations item that popped up, that they could run. So if it was a first or second priority item, which is really where the majority of our users would be, or something major was happening, so a major incident. If it was a major incident, that we would basically say to you, okay, we put this on pause. It's we need to stop until this is resolved. And we had that agreement starting out as a group. But everything else, I think that other than one or two individuals who I think struggle with changing their calendars, we didn't have a problem, even if it was something that we had set up only a month ahead of time. We didn't go often to each other's boards until day 2. So I think in day 1, I would have liked to have seen each other's breakout rooms. And I think that it was a very good practice to have one person stay and explain their board. I think that I really enjoyed the online version better. And the reasoning behind it was that I think that it had to do with, I felt like we had more individuals who actually had, sounds really strange, maybe it's the training we had done ahead of time, but we had people who understood the Scrum basics. Yeah. Whereas the one that we had in person, there were individuals in the group that didn't have the basics of the empirical process. Yeah, but I think it's as well that you've been facilitating for a while online as well, so you're very comfortable with facilitating online. You have the setup for it, and I don't know if every facilitator will have that. So I think that there's requirements that we need to take here as well. I think that having the in-house training is very, very useful. Huh. From a facilitator point of view of trying to introduce LeSS to an organization, I would say that the public attendance was actually extremely useful to me, because I had multiple viewpoints from multiple types of companies as well.
Yeah.
So for me, that also brought in a different sort of a value that I think it's different for when I'm just looking internally and we've already decided on less than when I'm somebody who's trying to help the organization make that decision. So I think it's there's a place as well for these public trainings, from my perspective, that bring a different value. I would actually say that it comes across very well. And I think that it comes across as well in a more structured way. So in the online training, the passion is definitely there. It's felt. I think that what really was helpful for us as well is that you stayed on for the extra 20 or 30 minutes after every single session for the people who had the burning questions and who shared a passion or who really disagreed with the topic, to be able to express that with you and to have that conversation. And we were able to do that in a much smaller group, which I think is actually where your personality really shines through as well. Okay. So for me, it was important that we took that time because for some individuals who are a bit, who have differing views, I think it's an extremely good thing to be able to really come across somebody with your passion and then to be confronted with it. And I think that online, it's still clear that confrontation is happening.